Randy
Hey.
Milmeister.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in. So interesting. Yesterday we were talking, and I thought I was going to interview you,
Yes.
and you thought you were going to interview me. So we actually thought it would be a good idea. So just let's interview each other. Let's
And-
knock it out. Let's knock it out of the park.
And
And
all
let's-
of our, hopefully somebody will take something from this and it'll be educational. Someone it'll be a little entertainment piece.
Right.
But hope that we can provide something special for all our friends here in the community.
Yeah. So when I first met you, I mean, one of the things that with me, I like to connect with people, right? I like to connect. I think I've been doing this long enough to understand that there's got to be certain connection when doing business, especially.
Business especially, yes.
I'll move this up a little bit. So one of the things with you, man, right down when you came, I told you I watched the movie Fools Rush In to prepare for this interview.
Yeah.
Because, man, you are from Las Vegas.
Yes.
You are a Las Vegas native.
1979.
Since 1979, you know the city. So when I first met you, we had lunch. We were just reminiscing back of how Las Vegas used to be. So that was like, man, like this is my dude right now. Like,
Good.
what's going on? But then I got to know you more about your business, and man, you have a pretty interesting, amazing story. You grew
You
up.
gonna start out with that story at the beginning of the interview?
No, that's not it. I'm not gonna start
Okay.
with that story. I'm just saying you have a pretty
We gotta
interesting
like
story.
Soften
We're gonna soften the
it
blow.
up for people so they don't come in thinking, dang it.
No,
he's-"
but I really admire what you're doing with Las Vegas Realty and Probate.
Yes.
Okay, just because I feel that there is a lot of need for information out there. Even myself, I've been doing this for such a long time, but there's always, I don't know enough about the subject to even like have a conversation with somebody. And when I met you, man, like you have connections, you know who to talk to. If it's about a particular situation that a family is going through, I mean, you automatically know what expert you need to call and what attorney handles what. And that took years of experience and hard work.
It did take a few years. So let's talk about it. Where do you want me to start?
So let's start about with, so probate, like it's not something that somebody really specializes that I've seen. Maybe some people do, and forgive me, but how did you say that's gonna be my thing?
You know, I just thought of this, and I don't think I shared this with you when we met, or maybe I did. Maybe I forgot. The training and coaching in real estate that I've had for the last 16, 17 years has been through a man and his family and a company called Mike Ferry Organization. At an event, probably, this must have been 12, 13 years ago, I met an agent in San Jose, name's Abel, and he said, oh man, I took this probate class, you gotta do it, I'm telling you, you gotta get involved with this, there's a lot of opportunity there. And I, like probably 99.999% of people in the country on the planet have no understanding of probate. And I didn't either. So I went to this. It was a one-day class in Long Beach. And I said, wow, that is really interesting. And I was like, I think I need to learn more. And so I went and took a couple more classes. And at the time I was a broker, and I would invite people from the community attorneys to come in and talk to the agents. And one attorney, his name was Lee Dreisen. He's still, I have business going on with Lee right now. And he came in and taught, I think I had 20, 25 agents about estate planning and probate and how to avoid probate and why it is such a nightmare for most people, most families. It's, it's very rare that anything goes smoothly. Where most people, they'll tell me at some point, Randy, get the hell out of me, get me the hell out of this deal. I need to go back to my life. So I took a couple classes, and after Lee presented at my brokerage, he sent me a listing referral. And I sold that referral. I was like, wow, this is really simple. Well, I don't know why that one was I thought was simple. Maybe I thought because, well, the house is vacant. I can do what I need to do with the property. I can market it. I can show it. And maybe that's what I thought was simple, because probate is not, the deals we have going on right now are some of the most complicated deals I've ever had in 21 years of real estate.
They are. I believe they are. I mean, I don't even know where to start. When families come to you, obviously, they're at a stage where they need to sell the house. Something happened. It can be a very emotional thing. How do you keep it? Do you keep it separate? Or do you try not to get too emotional with them because you don't want to lose sight of what the overall goal is?
I thought about that a lot, and I don't think I'm cold-hearted. I just maybe have a practical understanding that death is part of life. We all want to believe that we're going to live forever and, nothing's going to happen to us. Unfortunately, you, me, everybody in this building, everyone listening, watching, is not going to be here in 100 years, right? Both of my parents have passed in the last 8 years. And, for some, and everybody reacts differently for death. My sister, and this is very common, had a total meltdown, and it was just, the terrible, terrible thing. For me, I go into the perspective of, well, why don't we just celebrate the person's life? The good things. And because in all of our lives, with all the relationships we had, sometimes not everything is good. So when you mention the families that I work with, I don't, if they're grieving, and some of them are, and there's a myth when I talk to other people in the real estate industry about probate, that they think everyone's grieving forever. That's very rarely the case. I do have one right now where mom passed, and even adult daughter, my age, she's 50-ish, she's grieving, and that's okay. And so my job in those cases is just to come alongside and hold their hand and walk them through this process. My part is to sell the real estate. Probate will usually end up taking another 3, 4, 5 months to actually close out, but a big part of the process is the petitions and the filing for real estate coming through probate.
Okay. Now, I guarantee you're almost at 100%. There's always family disputes when it comes to probate. When I get a call from somebody asking to do a deed, removing somebody from title, I actually reject. I reject it. I tell them, sorry, I can do it. You're gonna have to go to another place. No. I just, they helped me buy the house. I couldn't do it at the time, but I've been making the payments. So now they're gonna remove themselves from title and they're gonna transfer it over to me. I don't think people understand the consequences of that. Because when there's money involved, I've seen it on my side, on the title side of it.
Everyone's different when money gets involved.
Everything changes. Right now, hey, you know what? It's okay. We're friends. I'm going to help you out. But the moment that person sells that house and then this other person finds out they're getting a pretty penny for it, then the friendship, and I've seen it personally, the friendship, the family bond, the ties, the brotherhood, sisterhood, it goes out the window. Does that happen to you?
It happens. Yeah, I've had a couple this year where it was like that. But let me take a step back.
Yeah.
In the thought that that siblings or family are always fighting. It does happen, and I'll share a couple of those stories. But backing up to the emotion and grieving and the thought around death is, for a lot of probates that I work with, and I want to say like 70-80%. There's not any grieving. Like, I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I sold a condo. Brother died, but he was like 90 years old. He had 2 brothers in New York. They were, 80s, 90s. They expected that he was going to die. There was no emotion. They came out here to Las Vegas. I met them, and they just wanted to know, how do we, sell his car. I was able to get a vendor to take the car. He has a condo. There's not really, they're in New York. We're in Las Vegas. It's not feasible or economical for them to take that anything more than, that they can carry on an airplane back to New York. And then what are they going to do with it?
Right.
They're 80, 90 years old. They're going to take it back and give it to somebody, possibly a kid or grandkid, who probably doesn't like it, because what was popular in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, most people are not interested today. We can go into deeper into the types of collections that people have had. But let me answer now the other question of sibling disputes. You're absolutely right. Everyone reacts differently to death and money. For some people, they live in a poverty mindset, so any money, they're going to do whatever they can to get it. For others, we believe in abundance, and whatever money comes and goes, life is going to be okay. I had one earlier this year, and I had 2 this year, where one sibling had to evict the other sibling out of parents' house. And I'll tell you, let me just, no bullshit. So, what brother who is managing the estate is in California. the brothers here in Las Vegas. And again, these are adults. These are not kids. These are,
Right.
they're in their like 50s, maybe, 50, 60. So the eviction was going on for months and months. They finally called me, okay, Randy, we have scheduled a constable. He's gonna, can you meet him with a locksmith so we can lock him out? And I'm thinking it's just a brother and maybe a girlfriend or wife. And this is not a big house. This is like a 1,500 square foot,
Yeah.
3-bedroom house. People start coming out. And this is like 8 in the morning. So it's not like they're having it's a party or something. There's some like a barbecue. People are coming out. There had to be 4, 5, 6 adults, and then 3 little kids. And man, I'll tell you, we mentioned emotion. That was not a fun part of the job. I didn't want to see 3 little kids getting kicked out to the street.
Right.
But they knew this was happening. It's not like it just showed up one time. This eviction was going on for probably 6 or 7 months. There were postings on the door. This date, you're going to be out of this house. But some people, they don't react. They are like professional squatters. Good, bad, right, or wrong, it's what they're doing. And the estate needs to move forward because for probably 95% of families, any economic value, money is held in the real estate, and no heirs can receive any inheritance until a property is sold. In order to sell the property, we needed to get them out because they were occupying when they shouldn't have been there. Shoot, man, I don't know how deep I want to go in this story, and you could edit out whatever. But when I talked to the neighbors, they had told me that the son was like physically abusive to the mom, that the mom would come over like in the middle of the night, bloodied and beaten. Yeah, it's really, like the story gets, the more details I would share, it would get sadder. But the right thing was for that brother to get evicted. Now, for the next 2 months, they broke back into the house, and I would have to come over there and kick him out again until I ended up, I finally boarded it up and tried to find a way to make it so they couldn't go in so we can get the property sold, right? It's not impossible, but very unlikely that a property is going to sell if there are squatters or people trying to get in the house all the time. So we boarded it out. So then we get to the court hearing. And so one brother, the brother who was evicted, and the brother in California. So I go to the court hearing because I'm here in Las Vegas. And the brother that was here, that was evicted, went to the hearing. And I had to tell him, look, man, like whatever you're going to say at this hearing, whatever you're going to tell the judge, it's not going to matter. Okay, all that you're going to do if you object to this process is cost the estate more time and money and aggravation. The attorneys, they're charging $300, $400, $500 an hour. I mean, look, I wish I could charge per hour, but I had to tell them, look, don't start any shit here because it's just gonna decrease the ending value of the estate.
So, I mean, obviously, you go through a lot of. It sounds very emotional, to be honest with you. And I know you said it's important to keep a lot of it out, and and you're a great guy, and that you're not emotionless. But at some point, it gets to you. Like we're all human. Like it gets to you. Like what do you do to just kind of like, because man, you're dealing with, the families which may be grieving or not. You're dealing with the brothers, the families. It can be, to me, I'm already like overwhelmed just thinking about everything that goes on to a probate. You as Randy yourself, like what is some of the things that you do to kind of like, hey man, like I need to reboot here. Like how do you keep yourself sane from all of it?
That's a good question. I get aggravated and pissed off at some of these people too. I mean, we have another one that we just closed. We closed like 2 or 3 months ago, but we just finally got the sibling, the oldest sister who was living there, evicted. And it's like, I did everything I could to help her. I said, look, we'll give you another 30 days. We'll help you get money, like a probate advance loan or something to help get out. And, in terms of emotion, like getting to me, I guess, I get pissed off, but, fortunately at some point I just realized to just move on to the next family that needs help. Like there are people that need help, and that's where my focus needs to be, not on why is this, why are we dealing, and I had this conversation with an attorney the other day, one of the attorneys I've worked with for years. I said, how do we, like, is it just us that these, we seem to have some insane families and clients, or like, is this just life? And really the bottom line is, look, people are going through the world doing the best they can with what they know. And so for me, as a backup, this is what they know and how they operate. I'm going to do the best I can to help us get to the goal line, to the finish line for this property and for the probate. And in the end, it's going to be a benefit for the family. But let me ask you something.
Yeah.
We're going to take go in a different direction for a
Yeah,
second. If everybody,
absolutely.
I don't know what the camera
Yeah,
is,
no,
but if
we're
everybody's
good.
okay with that.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned earlier deeds and titles, and that you have to tell someone to go someone else. For the people who are watching, for me, that meaning, well, we're both in the real estate industry
Right.
in the end. I would like someone like an expert like yourself from the title and escrow space to share what does it mean, title and escrow, title and deeds and property, and what are those specifically, and how do you and your great team work to I guess we'll call it clear title and for property to be able to be exchanged?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I'll go in briefly. I don't want to lose anybody, especially your audience.
Yeah.
So the escrow, we're the middleman. We get the contract. We're this interested third party. We make sure that everything closes, pay out all the parties, right? The title, we ensure that there's marketable title on the property, that there's no issues, no liens, no judgment. Now, I threw out the word deed, and probably a lot of the audience out there has already heard this term, quitclaim deed. Everybody knows that as a quitclaim deed, or a lot of people are deeding people on or off of title like it's candy right now.
They're just like signing a piece of paper.
Exactly.
And not going through the proper channels.
Exactly.
And so what are the proper channels?
So, it depends on the situation. For instance, yesterday I had a call by a gentleman who got a divorce. He's keeping the property, paying off the ex-wife. He wants to make sure that she's not gonna come back and have cause any issues. Well, first he's got the property, the decree that states that it's his property. So I just told him, make sure that you get evidence of payment that you paid your ex-wife. I said, but you need a spousal deed. You need to sign a spousal deed, something that says, hey, she's relinquishes her interest on the property. However, if it's not done and recorded by a title company with the proper title insurance, she in the future is going to have to sign what's called an affidavit stating that, hey, I knew what I was signing. I was coherent. Nobody forced me to sign. So he's kind of in a catch-22, Now, there's people that remove people from title, and they also need a deed. And the problem with that, Randy, is let's say that I remove you from the title of my property, right? And then we don't use a title company or title insurance company. In the future, I want to sell the house. We as a title company, we want to make sure that you knew what you were signing, because now I'm getting money. Now I'm getting money for this property. You can literally come back and say, hey, I didn't know what I was signing. Victor tricked me.
So
I was drunk.
How often does that happen? And tell us some real stories of
yeah,
how you've
man.
been able to manage or navigate through that the last couple of years.
I tell you a story that kind of almost has to go into the probate type of realm, a little bit of it. So I actually got a headache because I was so mad for a week with this person. So I get a call from a realtor. Hey, I got this potential deal, but we need to close fast. So honestly, when somebody calls us that they want to close fast, that's the first red flag. That's a red flag right away. So the clients literally show up in my office the next day. The buyer and seller showed up with no appointment. We opened up the escrow. We ordered a prelim. It wasn't even ready. They were over there ready to close. So then here's where I thought there was something going on. The buyer was extremely eager to close. The seller was extremely eager to close. And I'm like, there's something off here, right? So then my one of my escrow officers, she's like, Vic, the prelim's actually ready. Okay, I'll read the prelim. The property was in a trust. Okay. The person, the seller, I'm like, hey, I need to see a trust. I need to make sure that you're the authorized person to sign on behalf of the trust, right? Well, it's my parents' trust. They died. Okay. So, and you can agree with me.
And the line, and so tell us how the line works when there's a trust and the trustee or trustor passes.
Well, we need to check the trust. We need to see who the beneficiaries are and read the trust, make sure they're who they say they are. So she says she was the beneficiary. Okay, perfect. Well, I need the trust and I need a copy of your parents' death certificate. She lost it. She just lost it. But as a title company, I'm trying to make sure that in fact, I'm sorry your parents passed, but I'm trying to make sure that in fact they did, Because how did I know you're not trying to sell this house from underneath them?
Right, that their wishes were honored. That
Exactly.
what they wanted while they're here trying to do the right thing and have a trust. And I'll come right back to you. But
Yeah.
look, we know that we're here in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
There are issues with people. A person could be a drug addict. They could be a gambling addict. They could be, a lot of different challenges that the Las Vegas lifestyle may present. Not
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah,
But there are
absolutely.
some where you give anybody money and it's gone the next day.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, me also being a Las Vegas parent and now grandparent, that I would want to make sure that the kids or whoever is next in line, or my family legacy is protected.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to see a trust and the death certificate because that's what we need. The buyer literally got up and told me that I was insulting them. How dare do I, I'm like, well, it's not that I don't believe her, it's just that I need it. I mean, it's just a requirement. So then the seller got all upset. She told me that she had just done the exact same process with a different property and they never require anything of this for her. So, I mean, then the insults came. I literally got up and said, thank you very much. We will not be doing this transaction. So then I figured out what the urgency was. She was selling what she thought was a property for, and this guy, the buyer, thought he was getting a steal for, I think it was like $120,000 for a 3-bedroom or whatever. Wow. So that was a hurry because this guy was probably going to flip and make a profit. She needed the money. So the realtor calls me like 2 weeks later and she's, hey, remember that? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but we had to refuse service. They did not understand it. And he's like, no, she really did sold a property without, you guys were asking her too much things. Give me the property. Give me the address. Well, you know what, Randy? She did in fact sold the property like that. But here's what she did. Somebody prepared a grand deed, okay? And they just took it to the county recorders and recorded it. Now the buyer, so imagine this. Imagine if her parents are still alive, that transaction is void. It's fraud. Mm-hmm. Now on my transaction, they ended up doing it the same way. So my client was like, I'm getting ready to list it. I'm like, well, here's the thing. I am going to need her trust and I am going to need everything. And I'm going to need her to come back and sign because this is uninsurable. I need to make sure everything's in line. And by the way, I run some comparables. I'm like, you guys bought a piece of land with the mobile home on top of it.
Oh, wow.
I said, if they would have followed the proper process, we would have found out that the property was not converted into real property. There was a mobile home. So this land is worth about $20,000.
Wow.
I mean, he almost lost his shit because they paid over like way more than that.
Yeah.
And now I found out that when they tried to contact her to do everything's right, she wouldn't want to sign. She wanted more money.
Of course.
Okay, so that's one thing that happens when it comes to deeds. And also, how people take vesting is so important, especially in the probate world, because one little verbiage that says joint tenants can save people from probate.
Yes.
But a lot of the time, they're going to companies or places that, that don't know those little things, man. And it can create an issue. I had another true story where a client called me, hey man, we're willing to sell this house quick. The seller, committed suicide and left the wife and his son, and they tried to sell the house. Well, somebody did a deed, and the way they vested him, they just put his name, a married man, and the wife was not on title, so they're gonna have to go to probate.
Yeah.
This happened a while ago, and there's stories, man, that I can tell you. But now going back to you, man, what is the biggest mistake people make when it comes to probates?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know that there's one mistake. There are people who prepare to do all the right things, meaning they're watching us now, and they realize, well, we own property or we have some kind of equity in this world, financial equity, and we'd like to protect that legacy because, look, a lot of people have worked hard their entire lives for whatever they have, whether it's $20,000 in the bank, a property with $500,000 of equity. People have worked hard, and they would like to direct it to either their family, or maybe they don't have family, or maybe they don't like their family, and that's okay too. They want to give it to a church. They want to support a charity, a nonprofit. They want to support somebody. I just heard a story. Who was it? I can't remember. Or is this in the news? or you tell me, I can't remember, you'll have to edit this part, that the person wanted to give all of their equity, was like $1 million or $2 million, to the caretaker. Is this something we talked about?
Yeah.
Did we talk?
Yeah, we talked about it.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was actually happened to I Refuse a Deal.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, so maybe you can give more details on that.
Well-
but whatever the person did. So let's come back to answer the question of the biggest mistake. So there are people. There's two groups that I can think of right now. There's people who prepare and put a plan together, meaning an estate plan, a trust, and there are people who don't do any plan, or maybe they just do a will. And so let me break down each, or
Yes.
the problems with
Yes,
each.
please.
Because each could end up in probate, and no matter how much the people prepared, they may have screwed up. And what I find so often, I mean, and it happens. I find families this happens to probably once a quarter. So at least a few times a year, I hear the same story. You know, mom or dad or whoever put together a trust and estate plan, and they had they had a stock account, or let's say they had different assets. They had stock accounts, bank accounts, and real estate. They could have maybe a primary residence and a rental house. Well, let's say the primary residence is held in the trust. We call it funded by the trust, but those other assets are not held in a trust. Well, guess what? Those other assets now need to be probated. Well, wait a minute, Randy. You know, we have a trust. I'm the trustee right here. They pass away. Everything's supposed to come to me. It says it right here. Well, but they're not funded, not held in the trust. They're held in the individual names. And I'll give you another example. This is probably 15 years ago, who has now become one of my best clients, coincidentally, over the years, Marcella. Her parents I think they had a trust. I'm trying to go back on memory. Their property here in Las Vegas was held in a trust, but sometimes what people do is they'll take a property out of a trust to be able to refinance or take money out of the house or some kind of financing. And they forget to put the asset back into the trust. And this happens it's very common. Well, this particular property, was three different entities. There was, I'm trying to remember the exact, but there were like two trusts because for whatever reason, but half of it was half of the asset was in the trust. Okay. So imagine that the owners were the trust and an individual person.
Okay.
So the trust and mom who passed. Well, the 50% that's in the trust doesn't have to be probated, but the 50% that's held in an individual name will still have to go through probate. So what do you mean? They did everything right. They had the trust and estate plan. They put the property in the trust, took it out, and then half of it went back in the trust and half of it didn't. So the whole property, the whole sale, the whole file has to go through probate. And that's really unfortunate because it's just like a little mistake that probably ended up costing thousands and thousands of dollars and months and months, maybe years to resolve. The other big mistake is people own property and they think, and this is, I'm not hallucinating what everybody in the world thinks. A lot of people, and most people I've talked to, they think, well, if I'm not a millionaire or I don't have, some excessive wealth, then I don't need a trust. I don't need an estate plan. I don't have that much to protect. So what they do is like, well, we'll go online and we'll get a will or go to one of those attorneys that say they'll do a $99 will. And a will is basically just instructions for a judge in probate. It doesn't avoid probate. So they say, well, I'm not very wealthy. They own a house. Maybe there's $150,000 equity. So they don't put a trust. They just, they think about doing a joint tenancy with, let's say, a son or something that they end up never getting around to. And person passes away. Now the son has to go through probate. Now that probate is probably going to cost about, for the attorney fees, the filing, the recording, the court costs, the everything, just the time and energy. Meaning if, let's say, son lives in California and there's a mortgage on the property, so now you have to wait to get through a confirmation hearing for probate to sell the property. What if that takes 6-7 months? So now you have 6-7 months of mortgage, utilities, HOA. There's thousands of dollars there that are lost because you can't sell the property until you get the approval. And there's the cost of the probate in itself, which could be, let's say, $15,000. So now for a silly reason, which they could have got a trust and estate plan done for probably $2,000-$3,000, has now cost this estate $30,000-$40,000.
Wow.
So that's it. I mean, to me, that's a big mistake. So then the question is, well, why don't people just get a trust and estate plan? Well, one, again, like I said, they think they don't have enough wealth or something to do that. Or two, they think they don't want to pay for it. You know, there's a meme going around for this last decade or so. I can't remember. You know, it was "F them kids." You know, it's like, and I'm not saying people think that.
Yeah.
But that's ultimately what happens when a person's estate is not protected. You're
Right.
just basically saying "F those kids," and maybe that's what they want. Maybe, you know, I don't know, but that's what ultimately happens.
And that's what I wanted to bring you on, man, because even for myself, you know, I think education, and because there's a lot of, well, I heard this and I heard that, you know, and my neighbor did this or my neighbor, and I hear that every single day in the escrow and title industry. Well, my neighbor did it like that. And my reply is your situation the same as your neighbor? More likely, no. You know, who's your neighbor's lender? You know, who's their this? So it's very different. Now, and you actually answered my question. I was going to ask you the difference between the will and the probate, because a lot of people do think that the will, that's it, man. Hey, I got a will. And they come to the title company. Hey, here's the will. Mm-hmm. And in title, we tell them it's probate. Mm-hmm. And people get mad. Well, no, that's the will. This is what they wanted. I understand, but you should have done a trust.
Yes. Well, it's the only way to avoid probate. I mean, not the only way, but it's for 99% of property situations, it's the only way to avoid probate.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and please correct me. In my humble opinion, and this is just my opinion, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving anybody legal advice here. I believe that holding a property in a trust is the safest, most secure way to hold that asset. And another reason why is because all this seller impersonation going on.
Oh yeah.
Somebody can, you know, especially for those of you who have your properties free and clear or land, there's actually handing land. They can do a fake ID with your name on it. Then they can open up an escrow or and pretend they're you, and sell the property or piece of land from underneath you. Okay, I think if people have the property under a trust, nobody's gonna recreate a trust.
I believe the trust is the best way.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, you know, for anyone I talk to that owns a house, owns any real estate, I tell them, hey, do you have a trust? Well, here, I can give you some trusted, great attorneys here in town that, you know, will help you get a trust done. And, you know, part of that is procrastination. And then two, they say, oh, well, I'm just going to get a joint tenancy. So that is a way that could avoid probate unless both joint tenants pass. Mm-hmm. Then it's going through probate
right.
in the end. So why not just get it done the right way? You know, what if, and, you know, there's a lot of, you know, what is it, 1 million ways that people die? Mm-hmm. But what if both joint tenants are, you know, in a car accident, both pass away, mm-hmm. that property's going into probate. Mm-hmm. So the joint tenancy doesn't help. Or this is what happens, what I see a lot, this is probates that come my direction, are they'll have a joint tenancy. One, let's say husband passes, wife now is the owner of the property. Well, wife is now maybe in her 70s. They forgot about all the title stuff. They don't know. She's happy just to be in the home, and she's going to stay there until she dies. So they never get around to resolving, well, if you're going to do joint tenancy, who's the next joint tenant? So if something happens to you, that the property will stay the way you direct it, or in the family, or whoever a person would want to share their estate with. And that they never get around to it. So guess what? You know, 5, 10, 15 years later, wife passes. Now the property, if it's going to be sold, has to go through probate.
Yeah, here's another, and I wanted to ask you your opinion. I have a lot of sometimes problems with power of attorneys. And I've heard, and please educate me on this, you can actually get a power of attorney done through the trust. In a trust, have a power of attorney in a trust.
Yeah. So that would be part of a trust. There's,
okay.
Shoot, I don't know. I'd have to, you know, maybe we can add this later to the video. But there are, I think in my trust, there's like 8 or 9 directives. There's power of attorney, or what would happen, or what would happen if I'm incapacitated. how, if I'm incapacitated, do I want to be on life support? So there's all of these. This is what encompasses the estate plan. It's not just about a little bit of wealth. It's also medical and health related items. And so our lives, our future of our lives, whether we're here or gone, can all be managed through the trust.
And the reason I bring this up because I get calls sometimes once a week, sometimes a couple per month about, hey, I have a new transaction that I'm gonna send. The seller passed, but left a power of attorney. Well, first of all, power of attorney is not valid if the person has passed. A lot of the times, well, most of the time, the only power of attorney a title company will take is actually a military one. That's the one we will take. But if it was a power of attorney that was done that is not in the trust, we will question it.
Yeah.
Because why? We want to make sure that they in fact wanted to give you the power. They in fact knew what they were doing. But that's why I tell people in the trust is so important. And I've seen trust without it. Mm-hmm. I believe it or not, I actually seen trust without a power of attorney. And I mean, stuff happens, unfortunately. But yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on that power of attorney because that's the number one fight sometimes that we get.
So power of attorney works with the trust. Mm-hmm. I don't know how it would work outside of the trust because it's just, without the rest of the documents, for me, it's just a piece of paper that could or could not be fraudulent. And in terms of fraud, there are many people capable of fraud. I think Howard Hughes, when he passed, I think there was like 400 to 600 to 800 people who said they had a will or a power of attorney or some kind of piece of paper because he didn't have a properly set up estate plan and trust.
Wow.
So those things happen. So the trust works with all of the documents, all of the which this is why it's so important to go to an attorney who specializes in this type of business because they're going to, in most cases, going to do it the right way. I see commercials all the time, trust and will or all this, I'm not going to call it bullshit, but it's like you get what you pay for, and unfortunately, and we can hear that not a euphemism, but we can hear that phrase a million times, and until we learn the hard way, you get what you pay for.
Yeah. And and unfortunately, we do get to see that end when somebody's selling their property. We run the title report, and then we see the vesting, and then we're calling it. We're gonna need these people, and then they tell us what happened. Well, where's the trust? A lot of the times we've getting lately that I lost a trust, and I cannot find the attorney that created it.
Yeah, that happens.
And we're stuck. What is your advice for people as after they create their trust? What should they do? So, again, I tell people, hey, make sure you put it in a safe, and make sure you make a copy and give it to somebody you trust. What would you say to somebody?
So what I don't know what the right answer is for somebody else. I can tell you what I do.
Yeah.
I have my trust. Like when you walk in my house, I have a little area that's like my desk. And my trust documents are easy to see and up on a shelf like this. So that, and everyone I know knows I have a trust. I mean, I guess that's, so maybe that doesn't help everybody else, but everyone knows I talking about trust and estate plans ought to know I have a trust. And my trust, my first trustee, so if something happens to me, who would take over my trust is my cousin, who I trust, to be able to manage my affairs until my, better than my kids. Even though my son's 19, what would he do with my assets and the things I've been working on building in my life? So I told my cousin, say, look, you're the trustee, if something happens. And then the second trustee, I don't know if it's second trustee or trustor, is a friend of mine here in town who I think is very smart, understands money, and would do the right thing. So I've told those people, so they may or may not remember, but I'll email them like once a year or every couple of years, say, hey, just a reminder, you have this place in my trust if anything was to happen. I think that would be the best idea because, maybe people have trust or people have friends and family that they trust, but what if they don't trust anybody?
Yeah.
Well, then maybe if you got to trust your attorney, I would say make the attorney the first trustee to be able to manage to make sure that your trust is in line with the wishes that you would like to be directed after after we're gone.
And a trust, let's say, you lose contact with that person who is in your trust. Is it easy to amend? Is it easy to change that person?
It's simple. I mean,
Okay.
most attorneys will charge some fee.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you just call and that could be for life, death, anything. I've known people where they did their trust 20 years ago and the attorney's gone now and they need to amend it. So they need to go and maybe create a new trust or just amend it. Or when we have kids, that is important to add them in. And if, and let's say that if we have kids that are troubled or have, some issues, we all would like everyone to turn out amazing. And unfortunately, that's just not how the world is. Or let's say they marry someone that we don't like and we think would take advantage of our assets, then we want to amend it to say, hey, this son or daughter or whatever family or whatever person has in their trust maybe would be limited on what the as a beneficiary or an heir of what their receipt of any assets or monies.
Wow, man. I mean, I think this is so important. I mean, I've learned so much just in the few times because it's always tricky when people ask you for probate. And a lot of realtors do call me and ask me for probate. And, I mean, my knowledge of it has been limited. But once I got to know you, man, I'm like, man, Randy knows his stuff, man. He knows. But I'm so glad you also brought in the difference between a will and a probate because that is, I think that it's one of the most asked questions in my side of the business. Well, what's the difference of it? And then I think you explain it so well that the will is just, here's the instructions for the judge to see that this is what you wanted, but for them to continue to do the probate.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's such a black and white way to explain it. So thank you, man. So
Welcome. Hold on. Do you want to, I don't know or how much time do we have? Because I want you to be able to get to your story, what you wanted to ask me about my story. And I still wanted to ask you about your story. How much time do we have?
I think we got about 10 minutes.
Okay. Can we fit it in there?
Yeah, we can fit it in there.
Okay. How do you want to segue?
So I'll segue it. Segue it. And it's live, Randy, so I don't cut anything.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Ivan knows I don't cut anything. It just goes. So that's what keeps it real. So okay. So we're going to go back to your personal side a little bit on your story.
Great. Let's do it.
So I think one of the connection with us is that, we miss the old Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
We miss it a lot. You were hanging out by UNLV area, Boulevard Mall. That's where I used to live. Mm-hmm. You went from selling what's legal now, selling MJ, to being a successful agent. Can you just tell me a little bit about that transition, man? Because I'm just curious.
Yeah. So growing up, I was actually like I was a jock. I played soccer. That was my goal coming up through high school. Unfortunately, I broke my foot my senior year. So like that kind of life, thinking I was going to play college and that lifestyle kind of came to an end. And at that time, this is the early mid 90s. Here, the rave scene was starting to grow when I was in college. And like the first, I would say like electronic music club opened up. Like the clubs, they would play some electronic style music, but it didn't really happen until Utopia opened. At that time, I had some friends that participated in, let's say, drug dealing, okay? And man, I love the rave scene. And I was, as in as I could be. And through that experience, I became a raver. I actually held a rave at UNLV. Shoot, it must have been like 1997, 7. And I'll email you the flyer I made.
Please.
I gotta have it. I know. I remember I kept it.
I remember the raves.
I made UNLV like you need love. Like you, it's pretty funny. So I graduated college. I had planned to go to graduate school, but when I graduated, I looked around because I graduated a degree in psychology. I looked around. I was like, man, I don't like these people. And what I learned is that whoever your classes that you graduate with, like those are the people you're going to be around the rest of your life. I was like, man, psychology people. Like I don't like these people. I wanted to always be a business person, but for some reason, I just, I didn't have the guidance. I didn't have, I wish I had a better mentor or a mentor at all who would have said, Randy, take business classes. I mean, because I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn, after getting into real estate and things that, probably lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because I just didn't do things the right way. I just didn't have the education. But during college, having lived that lifestyle, when I graduated, I ended up being a bartender at what at the time was the biggest strip club in the world. And friends of mine from that industry say, "Hey, Randy," and I bought my first house. So I think I was like 23 or 24, just a little house in Silverado Ranch. It was $120,000. Today, I think it's probably worth 300 something. It was my first house. And friends of mine said, "Hey, Randy, you have a house. You could grow weed, grow marijuana." And I was like, "Oh man, well that sounds interesting, but I don't want to grow it like in my own house. Like, how about I'll buy another house, and I'll just grow on the next street over." And so I bought my second house for $150,000. Man, this had to be. What years were these? I can't.
I'm thinking you got to be into the early 2000s by now.
Yeah, because I graduated in 99. Yeah. So this is this is after 9/11. So it's like 2001, 2002 when I bought my first and second house. And so like, all right, well, set it up. And my friend set up the, growing operation. And so that was it. But if you know anything about that business, it's not easy. I was working full time at the club, and like, it's a full-time job to take care of like marijuana plants. Like, you got to know like cultivation and like the temperature and water and mineral. It's like you got to be a farmer. And so I never really made money doing that because I'd have a good crop and then the next one would all be fungus and dead. And I was like, man, this is really not working. I don't want to do this anymore. And it's also like a little dangerous. Like, you never know. Like, I started to be paranoid of like, is anybody following me? Like, and at that time, obviously marijuana's legal now. And I think Trump is going to reschedule. And so or I think he just did, to make it easier for marijuana companies to be able to use banking and things like that. But back then, I thought it was like, well, it's not like hard drugs or something, it's just basically, for hippies and stoners and that would be the customer base. But I didn't make any money. Okay. But that year from like 2001 to like 2003 is when the real estate market, like, prices doubled. This is pre-recession, and like real estate prices just went berserk. And so the house I bought for $150, when I was saying, man, this is not working, I think I need to get out of this thing. It was now worth like $250, $260. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So I made $100,000, and this is, 2000 times. So 25 years ago, I was like, that's like, maybe it's like $200,000 or $300,000 today. I was like, I'm a genius. Like, I think I'm a genius because I bought a house and then 2 years later sold it and made like $100 and something thousand. And I thought I was a genius. Obviously that was just the time. I didn't know any better than that. And at that time I was like, well, maybe like buying and selling a house is called real estate. I knew nothing about real estate. I knew nothing. I used a real estate agent. I didn't, learn anything from him to sell the house, to buy and sell the houses. But I was like, maybe I should look into this. At the time, a friend of mine was dating a major player in the land business in town. And so I got involved with them, and I got involved in the land business, and that was 2004 or 5. And here we are 21 years later. And, look, whatever that experience was, right, wrong, good or bad, it was the experience that got me here, which I love what I'm doing today in real estate. Not only am I a real estate broker, my own company, but I'm working on my first development, a 6-unit apartment building for affordable housing in downtown Las Vegas. And I'm excited. I was like, well, because I still have friends. Interesting. I was thinking about this on the way over here today. I still have friends that are in that hospitality industry that like were bartenders and waitress or servers. And like one of them still bartender. I was like, man, how do you like do that bit, your whole life? And I'm glad I didn't, not saying they're good or bad people. Whatever a person does is good for them. But I'm so happy I had an opportunity to do something else and, in my 20s to move into being, a professional real estate person.
Wow. I mean, we all have that crossroad sometimes in our lives that we take that choice. And just kind of like myself, man, when I first got into the title industry, I actually left the interview. Tell me about that.
Yeah,
so I left the interview. I was I was going to the interview from a friend told me about the job, and his friend worked there. So I went. I remember I was driving my big 1990 Chevy Capri, and I got to the parking lot, and I'm like, no, they're not gonna hire me. What are they gonna do with me? I was going to college, work at an ice cream shop at Haagen-Dazs in Monte Carlo. So then I got in the car. I called my buddy up and said, hey man, thank you so much for setting this up. I left. I just don't think they're gonna hire me.
And why didn't you think they were going to hire you?
Well, I was here. I was here legally in the country. Like I just didn't think so too. Like I was just so scared. Like I was trying to fix my situation, and he's like, "Hey, take it, just go." So I took a risk, and they actually hired me on the spot.
Wow.
But if it wasn't for that U-turn, man, like I wouldn't be here sitting today. But we just ran out of time, so we're gonna have to come back to part
I'll
two.
come back.
We're gonna have to
Yeah,
part
we got
two.
more to talk about.
We have a lot more to talk about. I mean, we're very interested in this probate process, especially for 2026. I know we talked about getting together and doing some education classes
Yes, for the Hispanic
the
community.
Hispanic community, real estate professionals, and community as well. So maybe in the next episode we'll touch more base on that. But today, I just wanted to know more about your story, get everybody warmed up for what's to come with you and I.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks.